Hi everyone. This is our second webinar in the summer webinar series. I'm Ashley Adamati, Wanda's Chief Learning Officer. And in today's session, we are going to be doing a walkthrough of Wonda Pro with Wanda's CEO, Arnaud. And then I will be going through templates and use cases of the new Wonda Pro technology. And then Devin Young will be showing us the product. Apologies. Devin will be doing the walkthrough. And then I'll be doing templates and use cases. And then Devin, who is Wanda's Chief Growth Officer, will also be showing us what is going to be the upcoming latest and greatest in Wonda Pro in the coming months. So that will be the product roadmap, and then we'll open it up to Q&A in the last 15, 20 minutes, and then we'll do a quick wrap up. As questions come up, please feel free to post them in the chat, and we will field those at the end. And we'll get started. I'll pass it over to Arnaud.
Thank you, Ashley. Very glad to be here today to share a little bit more about Wonda Pro that we started to introduce to the Wonda community about 2 months ago now. So if we move to the next slide, and I guess I start. We started talking about Wonda Pro 2 months ago, as I was saying. It's actually rooted in 10-year mission at Wonda to empower instructors and experts to build what we like to think of super engaging digital learning experiences, and that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years at Wonda, with Wonda VR Studio and then Wonda VR Spaces, and now with Wonda Pro that we are introducing today. And I'm very glad to be here with Ashley, and Devin. Also, as you have been joining the team about a year ago, and it has been a pleasure to collaborate with you. So it's also the result of a new collaboration and the team growing up at Wonda. In a sense, it's a result of 2 years of research experiments with the community of 50 plus higher ed institutions that we have had the pleasure to collaborate with and to co-innovate with. I guess it has been at the spirit of Wonda since day one. And so, Ashley, if you move to the next, to the next slide. So the one thing we've been doing for the last 2 years, just as a quick intro, has been to explore like how can conversational AI simulations be relevant, be useful for instructors, experts, for students, how students would react to it. And for the last 2 years, the results have been, growing in quality and assurance that yes, there was something. And specifically something in the field where in any kind of field that are taught in higher education in particular, where interpersonal skills like client or colleague rapport are critical and require highly specific training scenarios that are specific to the type of skills that have been trained, the certification standard, even the methodologies, but also, and probably most importantly, the style of the teachers and the instructors that are including those new type of AI simulation into their curriculum. What we also understood in the last 2 years is that there's something very critical and very important in those kind of conversational AI simulation, that they enable scalable and personalized role plays and coaching with instant feedback, something that was previously unachievable. So you would do role plays with students or with your colleagues, but here it's something much more scalable, that it can be scaffolded by the instructor and the subject matter experts, and leave it to the students to do those kind of homework and activities to practice in those highly specific training scenarios that I mentioned prior. In terms of impact, our belief is that it can actually dramatically reduce time to skill. We've had, and it can impact millions of students in frontline and mid-level professionals. And I guess that's why also, like what we're seeing in the last few years is that the usage of AI simulation has been growing very fast. So today, moving to the next slide, we are talking about Wonda Pro as the new platform, the new product. Wonda Labs, for those of you that are using or have been using Wonda Labs so far, will maybe find in Wonda Pro some other type of usage that you find in Wonda Labs, because those two products are actually quite different. So just to frame it, Wonda Labs is multi-purpose. We launched it actually in 2019. It was called Wonda VR Spaces. So that's our legacy platform, but it's also the one that is being used campus-wide in so many universities. That's also where we did the research and testing of all conversational AI-related simulations. But in a nutshell, Wonda Labs is for creating spatial learning simulation. It's mostly for multimedia creators. So if you have people in your team that are doing 360, 3D work, you're looking at virtual reality headset deployment as a must-have, and you want it to be multi-format, and you have the resources to build the simulation. Wonda Labs is a great tool to explore ideas on how to improve learning in your institution. As for Wonda Pro, what we took is everything we learned using Wonda Labs and AI capabilities to create a platform that is really dedicated to conversational AI for building professional skills fast and at scale. So instead of saying you're going to take 3 to 6 months to create a simulation in Wonda Labs, in Wonda Pro, it's going to be much more streamlined. Professors, instructors, teaching assistants, even the students themselves can be much more autonomous. It's very straightforward. Anyone can create simulation. It's really dedicated to conversational AI. We've again one key component, and I think that gathers those two products, is that we at Wonda has always been in favor of giving as much agency to the learning professionals that want to use and to put in practice their kind of style, their methodologies, and so they can do it freely. And with Wonda Pro, we are taking one step further in actually making it more streamlined and also more impact driven and less research lab kind of oriented like Wonda Labs has been so far. And so that's why we decided to create a new platform, a new product that is really dedicated to scale and impact. But with that said, I mean, and just as a quick introduction, I'm happy to give the mic to Devin to introduce the product and tell us more about what it looks like and where we are today, 2 months after doing this first introduction, as I was saying. Thank you.
Thanks for that intro, Arnaud. Hi, everyone. My name is Devin Young. I'm the Chief Growth Officer at Wonda, and I spearhead the product and marketing teams. And I've had the pleasure of working with Wonda's designers and developers for really like the last 6 months and trying to figure out how to build this suite of tools on top of the existing Wonda capabilities. And we're really excited today to be introducing it to you and to be inviting you to this sort of closed beta. And then in the coming weeks, we're going to be opening that up to the larger Wonda community as well. And so, yeah, with that, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to walk you through what we've been building. Great. So this is what Wonda looks like in a program, right? We kind of have a hub the same way that we've had hubs in the past, but instead of there being individual simulations, there are these programs. These programs are a series of different simulations that follow one another and build upon one another in terms of experience, right? And so Ashley will walk us through kind of the template that we're looking at after this. There's like a structure to this and a pedagogy that's been thought through in terms of just what is the experience for the learner in terms of being introduced to the subject matter and then kind of going deeper into the experience. What we're seeing here is kind of an overview of what the program has to offer. So we have the simulations here. We have ways to kind of engage with them at a deeper level. We also have a reporting section, which is going to be being built out over the course of the summer to have things like group reporting. So we can really look at cohorts as a whole and see how they're performing. Right now, what we've got is more usage and the individual assessment reports that come from learners experiencing it. So when we look at what's here, what we were trying to figure out when we were initially conceiving of this was, how do we make Wanda more accessible to more folks? So right now, what we've built is something that is really capable and robust. And as Arnaud had mentioned, Wanda Labs has a whole bunch of functionality to be able to do 360 tours, and there's gamification elements and quizzes and all that. What we wanted now was to just kind of make the core experience as accessible to as many people, so that they could feel agency with the product and be able to build experiences that really impacted their students, customized on their needs. And so when we look at an individual simulation, what we've done is really rebuild the authoring process. So I'm going to walk you through kind of all of this step by step, but at a high level, what we're trying to do is, create a AI-powered avatar, design the avatar, give them an identity or her an identity, put them in a location, and then build an assessment around that conversation so that the learner can get feedback instantly after they finish the experience. So in this overview page, we have the name of the simulation, a short description of what it is, the image. We also have the choice to start the experience with an intro card, right? So here we would be kind of introducing what the learner is going to be doing in their interaction with the avatar. So here, this is a prompt where we're basically framing the experience as a coaching session with a negotiation coach. And so that's kind of how we get started. And then we pick an environment. So we have a bunch to choose from in a library, and you can actually, add other ones as well. But basically, you can pick things like an office or a hospital or a restaurant. So depending on your use case, you would contextualize that to the kind of training that you're trying to do. Then we move to the character themselves. So we give them a name. We have a whole bunch of options in terms of languages that they can speak. We have different voice options. And then you can test out those different voices just to see kind of what makes sense, again, for your context. This is using a service called 11 Labs, which is quite powerful, and that gives us a range of different options. I think Hindi is here, yes. And so, yeah, there's a lot of flexibility on that front. Then we get into the avatar design. So we have a library of avatars that are there and already pre-made, but you can even go a step deeper and create your own avatar. So that's really kind of fun because there's a whole bunch of different options in terms of clothing, in terms of their facial expressions or their aesthetic, I should say. And so you can build experiences where the learners see themselves reflected in that experience, which can be quite powerful if you're either doing something where it needs to be localized for a certain geography, or you're trying to engage with a certain demographic that might be skewing older or younger, what have you. So, so there's a lot of flexibility there in terms of creating an experience that resonates with learners. And then a lot of the magic when it comes to the AI piece is really all this prompting. And so behind the scenes, really, most LLMs is, if you're familiar with some of this stuff or AI tools, it's a lot of like what information you put in, right? So, garbage in, garbage out, good content in, you have great experiences on the backside. So what Wanda has done is gone through and really tried to simplify this experience into, kind of key categories to focus on. So what's the background of this character? What's the personality? What are the steps to the discussion you want to have? And then lastly, important details about the character themselves. What's powerful is that you can add a category. So in the prompting, it basically, if there's 2 hashtags, it creates a new section. And so you can even add more if you're finding that you need to customize beyond sort of best practices that we've put forward. And so there's a ton of flexibility in terms of just where is the character's background, what context do they have in terms of like entering in the simulation. And then, yeah, other nuances that you might want to add, like maybe they have, a specific, dialect, or, you give them like a cowboy accent if you wanted to, or something like that. So there's room to be kind of creative beyond just the plain things here. So that will get you a character. And then finally, there's the assessment piece. So in the assessment, we basically put in a title and a description of what it is. And then here, there's going to be different criteria that we would put forward, right? And then those are going to have basically things that the LM is going to be looking for within the conversation, and trying to determine, does this learner have these competencies? And so again, a ton of flexibility here in terms of building this out for any skill that you're looking to develop. And what's kind of interesting too is that, like, as you know, Ashley's going to be showing us templates and things, we're really setting up kind of a specific use case. So the template that we have today is around negotiation, but that can be adapted for any context. So it might be a negotiation within a hospital, or in a business context, or you know, in a language, you know, course, you could try to use negotiation things to help develop language art skills. So there's a lot of different ways you could sort of play around with it. And so you set up your assessment. You can, on the right here, once you've kind of completed all the different you know, settings, you can actually launch it here on the side and have test conversations, and which I won't do because it's a bit loud, but essentially you can like have a conversation with the avatar and then tweak your settings and then rerun it here and kind of iterate as you go. So that's the new simplified editor that we've built. And we plan to be kind of adding to it over the course of, you know, the next quarter or so. But our hope is that it's really going to enable a lot of people to basically have access to this tool and understand it kind of at a deep enough level to make experiences really impactful for their learners. So coming back to learners, you know, we have a sequence of different simulations here. And as they're going to be having these conversations with folks, so if I were to like launch this, right, we go into the sort of, here's the intro copy that we put at the beginning, and then we're having this conversation with this character. And then once that's done, which I'll kind of skip ahead, you end up with a assessment, right? So this is kind of what the assessment looks like from the learner side. So, and they're rated on different, you know, grades, basically. So you can kind of see where the average of the class is, and then where that student falls. You get feedback specifically about, you know, their competencies. And then as they're finishing their simulation, they're being shown the next in the sequence. And this is really impactful in terms of just creating that overarching narrative or that overarching workflow, or having, you know, one simulation kind of lead into the next. And so, yeah, we're really excited basically to put this together and to have these things working. So on the product side, that's what we're releasing so far. We're really excited to see, you know, what people are start building with it. And with that, I will pass it back to Ashley to walk us through some of the best practices around building things and what templates and things like that look like.
Thank you so much, Devin. Yeah, so we'll basically walk through kind of what Devin just went over and what the research is behind it. So for anyone who has seen my workshop from last week at the Immersive Learning Network conference, apologies, there might be some similarities between the workshop and this research, but at a high level, and this was this quote specifically is a paraphrasing from a paper that was submitted with Chris Dede and Shari Metcalf to the iLearn journal for this year. And what I really want to point out here is that a lot of what's been done to date is isolated one-off experiences in immersive media that then is supposed to lead to some, you know, profound change in learning. But what we actually see is there's a disconnect and we don't see big leaps in learning from just one experience. But where the big leaps come from is from extended scenarios with very strong narratives, as Devin talked about. You know, there's an arc to a program that's created in Wonda Pro that allows for authentic practice with intermittent coaching that's all linked to real world outcomes. So I'll go a little bit in depth on what the research is on each of those elements. So in the first side, on the first category is feedback and coaching. So these are all learning design principles that back the new Wonda Pro platform. So the first one is coaching or advice between sessions actually leads to greater learning gains than just reflection or practice on its own. And so as we'll see in the way that the negotiation program that's a template is designed, is that there is coaching, preparation coaching, and then there's debriefing as well. that allows learners to really think about the decisions that they've made in the real world role play. Then the second is that it's really important that learners receive formative feedback at some point, whether it be immediately after the simulation or a little bit after, but that they understand what they did well and what they could work on. So just providing a simulation-based practice won't actually lead to learning necessarily. And then the third point here with feedback and coaching is that reflection should be combined with feedback. So, or some sort of debriefing or coaching. So students receive feedback, but then they should reflect on that feedback. They should digest it and go through some sort of metacognitive exercise, whether that's in person with the instructor, with a peer, or in some sort of simulation-based reflection with an avatar. And the second category is practice and personalization. So I think what's really powerful about the Wonda Pro platform is that it allows you to quickly tweak experiences and personalize it to learners' needs, because learners, of course, have different needs. And it also allows you to personalize it to different scenarios. So for example, the program template that I've created is a negotiation template in an office space, but you could quickly make it into a negotiation for a nurse who's been overworked and trying to negotiate some sort of either better compensation or distributing their responsibilities in a different way to make their work more manageable. And then in the second point on this slide is something about reattempting the simulation. So I did a pilot, I conducted a pilot last year, and then I conducted another one earlier this year. And we noticed that across the board, learners want to reattempt a simulation, especially when they receive feedback after it. So they want to implement their learnings from the feedback and from the first round that they've done into a second round to see if they can do a better job. And so all of these learning design principles were incorporated into this program that I created. And just at a high level, we used an evidence-based design. So we followed kind of best practices that's relevant to negotiation and learning sciences, where we have students prepare for the negotiation, then practice, then they get some feedback, then they reflect on that feedback and their performance, and then they practice again, and then they receive feedback again. There's, of course, structured preparation, which this is in line with best practices. So we leveraged Professor Mike Wheeler at Harvard Business School, his strategies for preparation, which were outlined in Negotiation 360, but you could, for this specific template, but you could use any structured preparation template that you like to use, and you can change the questions accordingly. And then, of course, practice and feedback. So learners get to negotiate in this role play, and I'll talk later about what can be changed about the role play that could be made more palatable to different audiences. And then in this program, you debrief with a mentor. So you prepare with one mentor named Alex, and then you debrief with the same mentor. So this continuity of having one person following you throughout the experience helps with learning. And then the last point is retrying. So as I mentioned, you get to retry the simulation, and that's very much in line with what we see in the pilots that we've conducted, is learners want to retry, they want to practice. And honestly, it's really fun practicing in Wonda. So otherwise I wouldn't have started using it as a researcher myself. So for those who don't know, I actually started using Wonda when I was interested in negotiation training. So I created one simulation, and then now this has become an entire program based off of the initial pilot that I created last year. So in this program, in this template program, you're in a workplace called Green Tech. It's a tech company. And in this negotiation, there are power dynamics at play. So you are negotiating with the CEO of the company. And the idea is that learners build confidence in asking for a promotion. Now, this promotion is not, I want to preface this promotion is not just a money-based promotion. It's actually a promotion because the individual is working their old role and a new role. The new role is a step higher. It's in their old boss's position, and they're working 80-hour weeks. And so they would like to move formally into the boss's position and find a replacement for their old position. And so there is both, workload, interests, time off, as well as responsibilities, training and professional development, and salary all at play in this negotiation. So it's a very multifaceted negotiation. So in the first, in the program sequence, you first start out with an introduction. And this introduction is just to give you a sense, you speak with a character named Riley, and it's just to give you a sense of the program arc. So what is a program arc? What are the learning objectives? What's the company? And it builds your confidence in knowing a little bit more background information on the scenario. Then you jump into the preparation with the mentor, Alex. So you prepare with the mentor, and this is where we used Professor Mike Wheeler's methodology around preparation and the types of questions that should be asked in this step of a negotiation learning arc. Then in the third simulation, you actually do the role play where you're speaking with the boss, and then you receive a feedback report. And the feedback report provides input on 4 criteria: persuasiveness, emotion management, creativity, and the negotiation process. And then there is a fourth step where you go back and you speak with Alex and you debrief about the negotiation, the feedback that you received. What did you do well? Where could you improve? How close did you get to what you were looking for in that preparation that you did? And what were next steps that you discussed with the CEO? And what could the next steps look like if you were to do this again? And then you do a next round. You do another promotion negotiation in the same scenario, and you get feedback again. Now, I'm currently in the works of creating an extended version where you not only do the green tech case, but you actually then do another case where the structure, the deep structure of the negotiation is the same, but the specifics look different. And so that will be also launching in the coming weeks. So what does it look like to launch this specific program? And if you were to create this from scratch? So this whole program took me less than 10 to 15 hours, but I already had the idea and all the material built up. So, and I had a little bit of experience with the prompting area, but this is assuming that you have limited prompting expertise and you're developing a lot of these materials from scratch. So we recommend really 7 stages. So the first one is planning, and we provide guidance on this around how to design your learning objectives. We provide guidance on doing a needs assessment and a task analysis. And then you get into, once you've done with all the planning, and I think the planning should be the biggest work that you do in this process, then you get to writing the prompt characters. The character prompts. And this will be much easier if you've done a lot of the planning beforehand and thought deeply about that. This could be a couple of hours doing all of the prompts for a program if you've done the planning in depth. And what I always recommend is while you're writing the prompts to constantly be testing and iterating, because what might look good for another human, the prompt that you might write to train someone else to do this negotiation and to role play will look different than what it looks like to write this prompt for generative AI. So you might see that you might have to make tweaks along the way for what it might look like if you were to otherwise write a role play for your students to do. And then once the prompt for the character and kind of the flow of the conversation is finalized, then I recommend looking at the assessment criteria if you're interested in implementing and feedback after a simulation. And not all simulations need to have feedback. So for example, in my scenario, the mentoring does not have a feedback report after it. But you could implement a feedback report on how deep someone prepared for that negotiation. So I would recommend crafting an initial round of criteria, and we also have guidance that we provide on that on the Wonda Help Center for anyone who's interested, and then testing and iterating with the sample conversations that you've done that Devin just showed. And then as a sixth step, I do recommend before deploying or implementing this in a learning context to have users test, end users test the program. And how large the group of learners is I would leave that to the designer, but I do recommend having a diverse group of learners. So people who might have different needs or who might bring different perspectives to the feedback. And then in terms of this specific template, implementing this template in a learning setting. So this is designed to be about a little over an hour, about an hour and 15 minutes to do the entire thing. So what you might do is you might assign this to learners before they come into class to do a role play with a real partner in the classroom. Alternatively, you might have them practice with a partner and receive feedback from the partner, and then use this as a formative assessment for learners to get them to practice role plays, and then you can actually review the conversational logs and see how well they've done in the simulation exercises. So in terms of use cases, so this can be adapted to fit your students' needs and context. So for example, as Devin mentioned, you can change the avatars, you can change the prompts, you can change the preparation methodology, and you can even change company names and context for the simulation role plays. What I do not recommend is changing the deep structure of the role play itself, so of the practice exercise, because that's been tested over and over again with learners. And you can also use the template as inspiration for creating your own version. And as the third point mentions, you can change the industries in which the companies are in. So you could all of a sudden have learners practicing in pharma, in healthcare industry, in negotiating with parents, negotiating with principals. So you could, for teacher education. And then, as I mentioned, you can tailor the dialogue, but always keep the core structure. So here are some areas, some use case examples in social work and healthcare. These are currently being explored by our partners from the likes of NYU, Sheffield, NHS Hospital, Eastern Carolina University, HAMP, 3D Bear in Finland. And so some areas that you could look at is using simulations for building empathetic and culturally relevant language in healthcare and social work, or improving delivery of medical explanations. So with training of social workers and healthcare workers. Delivering difficult prognoses to patients. So this was done at Aachen University with a simulation where the person has had cancer many times, and at this point it's terminal. And so how do you empathetically deliver a very difficult prognosis to a patient? And what's unique about Wonda versus doing this in generative AI is the emotion that learners develop when they're speaking with the patient, avatar patient face to face. And then efficient and effective communication with colleagues. This is a big pain point in healthcare, and Wanda is a great way to practice that. In business, as I love negotiations, so that's definitely a use case. Other use cases that I've looked at are ethical decision-making. Not necessarily that the avatar itself is going to be doing ethical decision-making, but how is it prompting the learner to think about ethical decision-making and some of the decisions that they're making in a business case. International business with different cultures. I know NC State did a great experience around that. Consulting case practice, and then, of course, managerial communication. So how do you speak to different audiences, and how do you switch those roles, especially? That's always interesting. So putting a manager in the role of someone who's a subordinate, and then seeing how the tables can turn. That's also interesting. Another one is using the protege effect in a business context. For the language arts, kind of having learners test idiomatic expressions and practicing with regional dialects, using contextual vocabulary, historical representations. So this was done at University of Tennessee, Knoxville, where they recreated someone from the medieval times and had students practice and ask them questions about what their life was like. So it's a much more immersive way of engaging with the content than just having them read about it or watch a video. And then writing tutoring. So this is actually being done with Nicole Mills at the Harvard Faculty of Arts and Sciences on having a character lead guide students through writing compositions. In graduate schools of education, I come from a graduate school of education, so there are a plethora of use cases that could be explored here. AI literacy is one of them, and that could actually be done across all of the disciplines that I just mentioned, but using Wanda in a collaborative way with learners is something that has been explored at Harvard and other universities. And it's a great way for students to learn how to work with generative AI in a way that also allows them to learn. It can be used for simulating parent-teacher interactions, sociocultural misunderstandings, pedagogical frameworks and how to put them into practice, de-escalation techniques. There's a nonviolent communication template that was created at Wanda that provides kind of a template for what it might look like to practice de-escalation techniques in a simulated environment with a generative AI avatar. And then teacher decision-making and reflecting on how they made decisions in a simulated environment. So now I'll pass it over back to Devin to go over the product roadmap.
Awesome. Thanks, Ashley. Appreciate that. So we're working really hard to make Wanda Pro as awesome as it can be. And so we've got a bunch of things that we're really excited to kind of dig into now that we have a new foundation in place for this product. If you don't mind going to the next slide, Ashley.
Of course.
So in the short term, we're going to try to get some conversation timers set up just for folks. That's been something that's been requested a few times. And then really look at how to set up a more robust learner experience. So where folks can kind of go in and see their own reports, where we can kind of help learning designers basically deploy this with cohorts in mind so that they can kind of, run it with a class and then maybe run it with a second class later, make some adjustments to the program as it goes. Alongside with that, there's some advanced reporting that's going to come in. So group reporting for those cohorts. So things like being able to sort of just see the averages of certain competencies, being able to drill in more specifically on specific students, that kind of thing. From there, Ashley is going to be working over the course of the summer with community members to build out more templates. So we're going to have like a broad range of different use cases One of the things that we've been experimenting with even last week, Alno pulled out basically a whole template and just the text of it and was able to change the context using ChatGPT. And so we think that there's really going to be some powerful ways to use LLMs to start adapting the templates for your specific use cases and saving folks a ton of time. And so we're really keen to get this initial library of different experiences in place, but also start looking at how generative AI can help us really get even more personalized in terms of the experiences that we're delivering. And then two of the other things that we're hoping to get in towards the end of the summer is adding knowledge bases to AI characters so they can really talk to learners with, maybe some very specific, instruction manuals for a certain product. If you're doing sales training, or, you're doing something maybe more in healthcare, you might want to have some specific, health modules or different things as you're creating programs for, say, nurses or geriatric care, right? And so really allowing characters to have a deeper level of specialization when they're doing the things, the simulations, and then bringing in this notion of consistency in terms of memory from experience to experience. And that's really, I think, going to be impactful, because it a year ago when Alno and I were trying to sort of just understand where, trainings were going and where new tools were headed, this vision of creating a coach that was persistent with you with a learner was quite powerful. And it feels like, with this release, we're making a really important step in that direction in terms of just creating these series of simulations that are connected. But then to be able to really create a deeper understanding of that individual learner from simulation to simulation is really going to start driving home this sort of experience of having your own personal coach. And so really excited to dig into some of that functionality with the team, later this summer and going into the fall. So those are the main things. I would say that, just on a personal note, we've worked really hard to get to this point. We really care about our community and users. And so, and we'll get into just like how to engage with us, I think, as an organization, but we would be incredibly grateful for all your feedback. Like, the only way that we can actually, develop this product to really kind of resonate and land for you all is to be in dialogue with you and for you to be able to talk to us. And so, please, we'll make it easy in the product to do so, but please reach out, make requests, tell us where you're stuck, and we're going to be jumping in and trying to fix those as fast as we can in real time as well. And so, with that, I'll, pass it off to Arnaud to talk about pricing, but that's kind of what we've got on deck, and we're super excited to share that with you.
Yeah, thank you, Devin. So in terms of pricing, I know we've been discussing with many of you joining this call today with us. I guess, in a nutshell, the approach is to keep Wonda Pro as affordable as possible. So you can get started with a first project, a first program internally for a given semester or a given course that you have in mind. And so the starter plans start at $4,500 for 6 months, and it includes 500 training sessions. It also comes with a one-click LMS setup, the email support. It's really built for credit card payment only. And then if you want to scale, or you already have a more ambitious project, then we have extra offers that we'll be happy to discuss with you, including dedicated professional services if you want them for us, for example, to organize workshops, which we've been doing like quite a bit together with Ashley and the rest of the team at Wonda. Possibly also like to plug Wonda Pro to your own LLM instance, or possibly like specific LMS connectors that you would need to set up. Wonda Pro works by out of the box with all the major LMS. But if you want to do some custom thing, that can be also part of this kind of special offer. And obviously for volume pricing, there are projects launching this summer, like reaching thousands of students already to play test the technology at a larger scale. So obviously for that, we offer like scaling prices. And don't hesitate to reach out to us. Sales@wonda.pro is the kind of go-to place. You can always use the messenger, happy to discuss. But again, the idea was to say, how can we get it so that a quick 6-month program can be started by you and or a professor that has a specific need. Test it with students, do the full cycle that Ashley has been going through, possibly in less than 20, 30 hours of work, right? Including the testing with the student and then the feedback that can up will, as we expect, validate the efficacy of those type of training. Again, we are at Wonda really in the belief that those conversational AI simulation are to be created as much as possible with as much detail as possible and the style of every instructor. So the idea is to get as close as possible to the instructors and to the students so they can actually experience the technology, also understand what is possible with the technology today. Definitely in the last 2 years that we've been doing R&D on conversational AI from GPT 3.5 to GPT-4 and all the new models that came out. The game is totally different. The context window of what you can get and what the LLMs are capable of remembering, but also processing is totally changing. So we expect a lot of improvements and possible large-scale application of a platform across campus. We also understand that at the same time, everything needs to start from an adversarial belief. Any kind of innovation project should start small. So that's why we launched this starter plan at 4,500. In terms of community, Ashley, do you want to talk a little bit about it? Yeah.
Sure. So we are launching a Wonda community on Slack, and this will be a great way for folks from our network to collaborate with each other and learn from each other. And there's a lot of people doing great work, and we hear about it all the time, and we want to share it more broadly. And everyone is so collaborative among our network. So they're also interested in sharing their templates and the work that they've created. And so we're kind of creating a creator community that's starting with this webinar series and going to be augmented further by the Slack community. So as I mentioned on the first webinar, the idea is to create a community of creators who are exploring this technology, the bounds, and this is just another way for us to bring people together. And now I will open it up to Q&A. Thank you, Lee. Thank you for joining. Jose, I know you had a question about, is it possible to limit the number of training sessions per user? We are actually exploring that in future product releases. So currently, the way that you could work around that is make it private. You can make a program private and only invite users who you want to be testing the program or working with the program. And then you'll know how much a particular user, how many sessions they're actually using up. Any other questions? If people want to post it in the chat.
Or feedback and reactions if you got anything you liked or, yeah.
Thank you for joining. I think I have a question for Arnaud. Oh, here, we have Volker. After the 6 months, can I continue to use the experience? Arnaud, I think this would be a question for you.
Yeah, sure. So the idea is that the license plan and the starter plan can be renewed. If you don't, you can continue to edit it, but you cannot share it with students anymore. That's a principle. We have a free version, so you would kind of downgrade to the free version that has limited number of messages you can send. But that means that you can keep things up and running if you need to. Hope that answers your question, Volker. Sure. Nice to see you, Vince, as well. Thanks for your kind message. Should we talk about next step, possibly then? Oh, there is any question about the AI voices?
It says, Tina says about the AI voices, are there any limits for those? Currently, they have a 500-minute limit, and you can buy more credits.
I'm not sure I understand your question, Tina. I'm not sure about the 500-minute limit. Can you be more specific?
So, Tina, I don't know if you're using the free version of Wanda or the paid version, but I'll add this, that languages and voices have no limit. So, for example, you can use all 30 languages that Wanda provides in your simulations, and there's no limit to how many languages you use. And you could also use, for example, if you use English in all of your simulations, you could use different voices for each one. So, Carlene says, for those that are already using the current version through our institution, will Pro be automatically updated?
So yeah, about that. So as I was explaining, so Wonda Pro is a separate product than Wonda Labs or Wonda VR Spaces, which is maybe the platform you are referring to. So if you have already a user account with Wonda, you can use the same account on both products. The idea is that you can use them in parallel with each other. They are different use cases. And so, for example, you may have virtual tours and other type of simulations built with Wonda Labs that are not compatible with Wonda Pro. And then if you want to really go deep and at scale and fast on conversational AI simulation, we would suggest you look at Wonda Pro as a go-to place. So we will share actually the link to that, to Wonda Pro, so you can test it and compare the two products if you're already using the previous one. Hope that answers your question, Karine.
Yeah, so Carlene, you will get access to Wanda Pro. We'll be sending out a link so you can test it out, and please feel free to reach out with any feedback that you have on the platform. Of course, noting that there are updates being released on a regular basis. So something that you suggest might be already in the pipeline, but please reach out with any feedback.
Sure.
And something that I wanted to highlight here is, I don't know if a lot of institutions, and you can put in the chat if you all are thinking about it this way, but what I've seen is that, there are learners with different needs in classes. And what Wanda allows you to do, which is very different from Wanda Labs, is Wanda Labs, you can create kind of a decision tree model. So, you have one simulation that can lead into another if you click on something, and it follows that type of decision tree. Whereas Wanda Pro allows you to create strings of simulations that are hyper tailored to a specific learner and their needs. So it's not necessarily based on just one decision that they've made, but it's based off of an entire conversation that they've had. The whole experience could look different. So I think it's very unique. It's very unique. That's another differentiator, I think, with Wanda Labs. So if people are looking at personalizing learning and looking at meeting different learner needs, Wanda Pro is a great platform for that. Tina said, I remembered that there was a limit how much AI characters can speak aloud, and after that minute amount is up, AI character answers are only text-based and you have to buy more credits. So that's been changed. So now AI characters speak as long as the simulation runs, assuming that you have a paid account. And Arnaud, you can add to that.
Yeah, I think I understand what you are referring to, Tina, and we can come back to you. I think it relates to how long can be the answers of the AI characters, and it's true that we put some limits because it's a conversation. It's not a ChatGPT, right? Wonda Pro is not a ChatGPT replacement. Wonda Pro is for conversational AI simulation, where we expect that it's a back and forth conversation, and so that's why we put some limits so that you cannot have the AI character do like a 20-minute kind of like a one-man show, and it's really about the conversation. And so I think that's what you are referring to, and I'm happy to come back to you about this.
And Jose, I love your comment here. So Jose said they create learning experiences based on simulation models for all their careers at their university, and they've learned a lot. And Wonda is the first platform where they can identify strong pedagogical foundations. I saw the same thing in my research too, Jose. So it's great that you're seeing that as well. Alex, can the AI characters learn from previous conversations and suggest new implementations for their own prompts, if it makes sense? So I love that suggestion. As Devin mentioned, AI characters will have memory in future releases of Wonda, so they will be able to remember previous conversations. And I hesitate to use the word learn, but they will be able to statistically reason based on previous conversations to potentially suggest new ways that prompts could be presented in future conversations. That said, that would be something that we would have to look at internally, but it's not part of our current product roadmap. And I use generative AI all the time to help me craft prompts. And I usually have to come up with the deep structure myself because I've had it try to recreate new prompts, but oftentimes it's pretty superficial, the changes that it recommends. So if I want something to be very structurally different, I make that recommendation myself and then have it help me craft all of the outer layers. But Alex, that's definitely where the technology is headed. So what you could do currently is you could feed the conversations into a generative AI and see what it might recommend. What we're also noticing is that AI does, I mean, this might be obvious to some, but AI does less interpretation and metacognitive thinking. So that might still be on the onus of the learning designer, the instructor, to do that and then pass it off to the, and then use the generative AI for support here and there. But that said, I want to wrap up this webinar and thank everyone for joining us.